everyone, it's Baz from the Education Hamper. Today we'll be running our way through the 11 plus non-verbal reasoning exercises. In this case, it's going to be cube rotation. So let's just, from the offset, discuss what is non-verbal reasoning. It's one of the key elements in the 11 plus and ISEB if you're sitting either of those. What we're doing here is trying to measure logical intelligence using your critical thinking to work through pictures and diagrams to arrive at a solution. So in examples that we're going to run through today, which are 10 questions, we'll have images of a cube. We'll have an idea of the sides of the cube, and we'll be giving options as to trying to define a side of the cube which we can't see based on deductive reasoning. So can you plan for this within or train for it in terms of the exam preparation? Yes, you can. You can improve your spatial awareness skills, and you need to really work through methodically and logically, and you can come up with conclusions. What you'll see when we work our way through these questions, we'll be focusing on answers that are not correct, so we can rule them out, and then by that deductive reasoning, we can come up to an answer that is correct. All right, let's kick off to question 1. Question 1. The 4 cubes on the left are different views of the same cube. So these 4 cubes are different views of the same cube. They each have a particular shape on them, and what's key to look at is not only the shape but the orientation of the shape. That's important when we work our way through these questions. So the next part is A, B, C, D, and E are all possible options of a view of the same cube as on the left. So all of these are another option of a view dependent on the angle we're looking at the cube. However, only one is correct. So here we need to select the option that we think is another view of the same cube by deductively looking at these 4 images and then working or figuring out which we think is the correct option. So let's work through a bit logically here. So we have a window shape. Well, these are 2 window shapes. One has a cross, one has a single line, and then we have the diagonal shape here. And then we have various other options here. So let's just work through what we don't think it will be. So we look at the top left, we see a square with a cross inside and a square with a single line inside, a vertical line, and then we have a diagonal cross-cutting line, one black and one white. Let's see if we can see any cubes with these 3 faces on there. And we certainly see over here on the end, in fact, we see 1 and 2 and 3. So all 3 of these look like that top left image. Let's see if we can rule any of these out. So first thing we see is that this black triangle faces the cross-shaped window. So let's see option D. That's fitting that pattern. However, we can see that the white pattern on the top left-hand side has this vertical line coming up towards it, whereas it is going away from it on this face here. So we can delete this answer here. That's incorrect. Let's move on to the next one. Again, same pattern. This white triangle is not facing the correct orientation of this window here. So if you see that this line should be coming towards the white triangle, as in this face here, and we don't see that, so we can rule that one out as well. So that's 2 answers ruled out. And now let's move on to this shape here. We can also see that this square with a cross inside it is facing the white face of the triangle. We don't see that on this left-hand side. The square is with the cross inside it is actually facing the black triangle, so that we can rule out automatically. Now let's move on to this point here, which is G, with the square with the cross and then the diagonal line. Now looking at all these shapes, we don't see the G intersecting the window. I'm going to call this the window shape. And we see the G against the vertical line, but not against the window. So we can rule this one out possibly, but let's look at this one first just to confirm our answer. So here we have the G it's facing the point of this black triangle. So do we see that anywhere here? So we have the top of the G, this pattern here, same as here, facing a point vertex of a triangle. We see that again. We see that here. So that looks correct. Does this part of the G face the vertical line of this square? This part of the G faces the vertical line of this square. So this matches that pattern on a different orientation. So this, we didn't believe this was correct, and we think this is correct. So this is the answer, is the correct answer. If you need a few moments just to work through that yourselves, please pause the video and really look through it yourselves and try and figure it out. In the next couple of questions, um, please pause the video before you go through the solution and try and come up with an answer yourself. All right, on to question 2. Right, question 2, same setup as question 1. We look at the 4 options on the left, and then we try and figure out which one's correct. So pause the video and have a go yourselves. And in terms of the solution, let's work through each of these squares. So here we have F, S, and G. Let's find a face with those on there. So these two, F, S, and G, F, S, and G. So what do we see? The bottom of the F is facing the top of the G. Bottom of the S is facing the top of the G. Do we see that here? No. The bottom of the F here is facing the top of the S. So that's incorrect. So we can remove this answer. Now we have G, S, and a circle. We don't see that. We have a P square and a circle. The circle doesn't come anywhere else within these patterns, so we can rule this out. Here we have G, F, and S. So here we have the bottom of the G interacting with the top of the F. And that is the opposite of what we see here. Certainly this side of the F is pointing towards the top of the S, and again we don't see that here, so that's an incorrect pattern. Let's remove that. Again we go S, G, and F. So the S is now facing the top of the F. Do we see that in any of these examples? The S does not face the top of the F. It faces the end parts of the F. So we can rule that out. So by deduction, this must be correct. But let's just confirm. So the bottom of the S is facing the square. So do we see that the bottom of the S, or it could be the top of the S, but in this case, let's say it's the bottom of the S because the P's upside down here. So the bottom of the S is facing the top of the square, so that looks correct. And the bottom of the P is facing the square. So this pattern matches this pattern in a different orientation. So that is the correct answer here. I hope you guys figured that one through before you went through the solution with me. Question 3. Let's work through these are the patterns that are given to us. Let's just methodically work our way through. So here we have point A. We have R, an and sign, and a square with a vertical line. Let's see if we can see any patterns here that match that. So we can figure that out. And an R faces the circle, and in both cases they face a circle. So that's not correct. So we can remove that. Here we have the R and the and facing the circle, and we have R and and facing the circle here. But here we have the top of the R facing the circle, whereas this is the right-hand side of the R facing the circle. And also it's the side of the and facing the circle in both cases, and here's the top of the and. So this looks incorrect. So we can remove that as well. C, we have circle, square with a vertical line or horizontal line here, and hash sign. So this pattern seems to match that one. Let's see if it makes any sense. So circle is sitting to this side of this square. So the circle is sitting to that side of the square. And the hash sign is pointing towards the vertical part of this line. Hash sign is pointing towards the vertical part of this line. So that looks correct to us. But let's mark that here as a possible answer. Let's just confirm by removing the other two. Side of the R facing the circle, and we see that here, side of the R facing the circle, and the and also facing the circle here. However, if you look at the pattern, the R and the AND are in a different face to where they should be. In fact, it should just match this pattern. So that is incorrect. And here we have the bottom of the AND facing the circle. We don't see that it's the side of the AND that faces the circle, as well as this side of the R faces the circle, not the back side of the R, which is there. So that's incorrect. So yep, answer C, that's the correct answer here. Question 4. Let's work our way through this question here. So again, 4 examples to the left, and then we'll work our way through these options A to E on the right. Let's kick off with this A. We have the at sign, a circle, and a square. Do we see that anywhere here? At, circle, and square. No, we don't. So automatically we can remove that one. Part B question is a triangle with vertex pointing to the at sign. Triangle, vertex pointing at sign with an R. So we have all three here. So that vertex is pointing to the bottom of the at sign. So that's correct on this face. On the R, it should face the bottom of the R. On this flat face, on the vertex next to it, yeah, this looks correct. So let's mark that one as an option. Let's go back to this one. S, square, and an at sign. We have that here, S square and at sign. Again here as well, S square and at sign. But in both cases, the top of the at has the square. It's not the side, which is what's indicated here, as well as the bottom of the S. So that is incorrect because the at sign and the square are not in the correct orientation. So that's off. Again here, it's this side of the at facing the square, whereas it should be the top of the at. As you see here, top of the at faces the square, top of the at faces the square. So automatically remove that one. And here's a correct example here. So it's the top of the at facing the square. And then we have the S facing the square, which they both do. But this is a bit of another one of those tricky bits. The two faces are opposite. So S should be sitting on this face and the at on this face. So be very careful with these questions here, that they do throw in some of these trick ones where it looks like it's correct, but just be sure the faces look correct. So in this case, that's incorrect. So yep, question B, part B was the correct answer. The faces are incorrect. Right, question 5. Let's start by looking at point A. So here we have the circle, square with a line in it, and an N. Do we have any of those in here? Yes, we do here. So the N is facing the wrong side of this square. So if you notice here, the top of the N is facing the intersection point, and this is on the side. This is to the side of that square, so we can rule that out. Here we have N facing the correct orientation, and then the circles there as well. However, if you so this square should be at the top and N should be at the bottom, so it would match this shape here. So here's another one of those tricky ones where the faces are on the letters, or the shapes are on the incorrect faces. So we can remove that one. Now we have an N, square with a diagonal line and a circle. In any of these shapes, we don't see that. We see the L interconnecting with the diagonal shape and the circle. And this is a plain circle without a cross on it, so we can remove that one. D, we have the side of the L facing the circle with a cross on it, so side of the L facing the circle with a cross, that looks okay. And the bottom of the L is pointing towards the circle. Bottom of the L is facing towards the circle. And if you think of it from a 3D perspective, you would you would turn this that way. So the L faces this circle, and that circle twists up. So it's a twisting motion, and that will give us the correct answer here. Let's just mark this as probably the correct answer, but let's just confirm with the last one that this one's incorrect. We have the N facing the circle, the bottom of the N facing the circle, which we don't see that here. It's the side of the N that faces the circle, so we can remove that one. So by deducing the incorrect ones, we can say that D is the correct answer here. Right, question 6. Let's look at this one here. R facing this cross pattern. The top of the R facing the cross pattern with the circle to the right of him, right of the R. So the R facing the cross pattern, R facing the cross pattern. However, the circle is facing the back of this R, back of this R. So this is incorrect. Here we have the bottom of the R facing the circle. Again, we don't see that. It's the side of the R that faces the circle. So that's incorrect. R, P, and L. So the bottom of the R faces the side of the L. So that seems correct as well. And then the side of the P is facing the side of the R. Side of the P is facing the side of the R. So all of that orientation seems correct. And again, if you think about twisting this square up and around, then that orientation will match that one there. So let's mark this as a possible answer. And let's remove the other two just to confirm. Top of the R is facing the black side of the cross, which it is here, but it's next to a circle rather than an L shape. So we can remove that. And again, the side of the R facing the cross shape, we don't see that. It's the top of the R that faces the cross shape. Let's cross that out. So correct. C is the correct answer for us on question 6. Right, question 7. Let's start looking at the possible answers. A, so we have L facing the bottom of the L facing the circle, and the side of the R facing the back side of the R facing the circle. So what do we see here? We see the front side of the R facing the circle, front side of the R facing the circle. So we can remove that. That's incorrect. Side of the N is facing the circle, and the front side of the J is facing the circle. So do we see that? N and J together with a circle. Here we are. So J is facing the circle, which is correct, and the top of J is facing N. Top of J is facing N, and that N is facing the circle as well. So that looks to be the correct answer. And if we again visualize this on the end vertex that sits over there and pivoting round in that orientation, twist, we'll get that pattern. So let's mark this as a possible answer. Here, part C, side of N facing the circle, side of N facing circle. We don't see, so we have side of N facing circle, but there's no interaction with the R. So for that reason, we can remove that. R and L, so bottom of R facing top of L, which we don't see. It's the bottom of L facing the top of R. It's the opposite, so that's incorrect. And top of L facing the circle, which we don't see. It's the side of L, and the side of L that faces the circle, so that's incorrect. So B is the correct answer here. Question 8. Let's move on to part A here. So we have the diagonal shape, bottom of S facing the white part of that diagonal shape of the square. So let's just make sure that we have S, G, and the square. So, okay, here we are. This S faces the correct side of that diagonal shape. Bottom of G should face the black part of that triangular shape, and it does. And in this case, to match this pattern here, again, if you think that we want to twist this, so this face on top of this sits at the bottom there, we would match this shape here. So I think this is correct, but let's just remove all the other answers. Q, G, and F. Q, G, and F. Here we see that the bottom of the F faces the top of the Q, and this is not the case here, it's the other way around. So let's remove that. Top of side of F facing Q, we don't see that, it's bottom of F that faces Q. So that's a quick removal of that. Side of F facing the top of Q, that's incorrect. It should be the bottom. It should be the bottom facing Q. So we can remove that straight away. And F doesn't interact on these examples with the square with the diagonal. So there we are. A is the correct answer here. Question 9. Let's take a look at this one. First square here, we have Z or N, but I'll call it Z for now. R and a square with a diagonal in it. Let's see if we can find something with all of those letters in there. We don't see Z and R together in any of these. So remove that one. Top of R facing the black part of this triangle. Here we have the side of R facing the side, equivalent to the top of this triangle part. And that's incorrect because here we have the top of the R facing that. So that's incorrect there. Side of R facing the white part of the triangle. We don't see that. It's always the front side of the R facing black part of the triangle. So we can remove that also. Part D, the Z is facing the black part of the triangle. Yeah, here we have Z facing the black part of the triangle and the side of the and facing the white part of the triangle. Side of the and facing the white part of the yep, that seems correct again. We twist this around so the and comes to this face here. Z goes there and the square with the diagonal sits on this face. So that's probably our answer. Let's just confirm by looking at this. Side of R facing the white part of the triangle, but we know that it faces the black part according to the other examples. So that's incorrect. So D is our correct answer. Right, final question. Question 10. Let's look at the shapes here, the four different cubes with the faces and the particular characters on each face. Part A has the bottom of the G going to this black and white square. So do we see anything here with what I'd say a single pane window? So a square with a line in it. So here is an example. Yep. So these three faces match this one. So bottom of G it's pointing towards the black to white intersection. So black to white. That's correct. And the side of the G is facing the long part of this square. So side of the G facing long part of the square. Now if we imagine if we twisted this so the G went on this face and this face went up there and this face went down to there, that would match this pattern. So I think this is a possible answer. Let's just mark it. Let's remove some of the other answers. Top of F facing the circle, but what we see here is top of F is facing the intersection point of the line in the circle. And again, same here. So this is not the correct pattern, so we can remove that. We see the correct pattern, top of F hitting the intersection point of that circle, but it's now facing the black part of this square, and we don't see that. It's actually facing the plane part of the square, so that's incorrect. Here we see the end of the F facing this part of the circle with the intersection. But we also know what we know is that the top of the F should be doing that. So that's incorrect. We can remove that. And the bottom of F is facing that intersection point where it should be the top. So we can remove that. So there, A was the correct answer. So that concludes this video. We've gone through cube rotation questions 1 to 10. I will be making further videos with more examples. The more you do, the more you're able to attune yourself to these 3D rotational patterns, which will help in all the non-verbal reasoning. I hope you guys found this useful. I would suggest you go back through this, pause it, and really try and understand how you would do these questions. You've got to be methodical, logical, but you've also got to pick up your speed. So the more examples you can go through, is the quicker your brain will adjust to be able to figure these questions out. But for now, thank you for taking your time to run through this with me. I hope you found it useful. Until next time, thank you. Bye.